Hey there, and welcome back to the Complicated Kids podcast. I'm your host, Gabrielle Nicolay. I am a toddler whisperer, a speech therapist, and a parent coach. And today I'm joined by Susanna Peace Lovell. Susanna, welcome.
Thank you, Gabrielle. So happy to be here.
I'm so glad that we could make this work. We had a little chat before we hit record, and I am very, very excited for this conversation.
Me too. And first of all, I love that you're a toddler whisperer. And I also am wondering if you're an 18-year-old whisperer.
I have been known to try to whisper to 18-year-olds. It doesn't go so well, as we were discussing.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, the best way to whisper to an 18-year-old is to not talk to them at all. That's my
Gotcha.
advice.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yes.
We're going to rewind for a second because the person in question here, the 18-year-old in question, is your daughter.
Mhm.
And so I would like for you to describe, first of all, tell the good people the title of your very wonderful book. And we're going to talk about your book, but also your journey. So start there, please.
Okay. Sounds great. So my daughter in question, her name is Arizona, and she is currently 18 years old. She is officially a legal adult, which she likes to remind me of multiple times a day
Mhm.
for various reasons. Um, the title of my book, which is based on my journey raising her, is called Your True Self is Enough: Lessons Learned on My Journey Parenting a Child with Autism. So it is, it's my little gift to the world. It's something that I wrote because it's something that I needed myself when I was, in the trenches. I'm still in the trenches. They are just different trenches now. And yeah, it's part memoir, but it's also sort of part guidebook, part, let me just, share vulnerably.
One of the things I love about your book and your narrative is something that people will both find familiar and helpful, I think, and we'll talk about that in a second. But the structure of the book I kind of love. You have these truth corners,
Mhm.
and they're little mini chapters, and it's like little takeaways from the chapter of the narrative that you've just described, and it has really actionable things that people can do immediately. And I just found that to be very cool in terms of like how the book is laid out. So I just wanted to highlight that for people in case you're wondering, oh, yeah, get the book.
No hemming and hawing.
Yeah, no,
Do it.
it was super helpful and it's very clear and it's a short, easily written, very nice book.
Yeah.
So there's my
Well,
plug.
I appreciate that so much, Gabrielle, because honestly, it's taken on so many different iterations. When I first wrote it, it was like 350 pages of me just dumping, like venting, screaming, vomiting out everything. And, as time has gone on and as Arizona has been more aware of me writing about my life with her, we had to make a little compromise, from time to time. So
Yeah.
that is why it is this way today.
So actually, I said we were going to rewind, but I think we're going to stay here for a second in the present because your daughter wrote the foreword, and I actually am going to read the whole thing because I
Oh.
find it very, I find it very, number one, telling of who she is. Number
Mhm,
two, it's certainly written by someone who's autistic, but
mhm.
also the information is something that everybody should pay attention to.
Yeah.
And so I'm actually going to read it right here, and then we can talk. Then we will definitely jump into your journey.
Yeah.
So here's the foreword. These are bullet points. No child is perfect, and no human is perfect. It's okay not to be perfect, but you should always be respectful. If someone's brain works a little differently and they behave a little differently, that doesn't mean they're not a good person. They might just really not understand.
Mm.
Your true self is enough. This is something I want to dive into. Your true self is enough. You shouldn't have to change yourself to make other people happy. Listen and learn to understand your child rather than make them do what you think is normal. Okay, we're going to stop there. I said I was going to read the whole thing, but we're going to stop there. Because those two items,
Yeah.
bring your true self, but let me bring my true self. Can you talk about that for a second? Like, what was your journey into that? Because many, many families struggle with this. My kid is different. I just want
Mhm,
them to fit in.
mhm. Yeah, well, first of all, I get so emotional when I hear someone else read these words because I feel like, wow, gosh, there's just so much here. I feel delicious. It's like we're all asking for the same thing on this earth. We are human beings in this world trying to figure it out, right? And I feel like, the journey for me into this sort of different kind of motherhood than what I had originally envisioned for myself is that I had to understand and know as I was trying to, sort of fit my, you know, square peg into a round hole or whatever they say, right? I
Mhm.
was trying to fit that child into a mold that just could not be for her in any period of time. And so I realized pretty early on that it had everything to do with me and
Mm.
absolutely nothing to do with her being different. And so I have this thing called an ego, I guess we'll call it. And it got in the way all the time. And I
Mhm.
realized that the only time, well, most of the times that I was upset about the way that she was sort of presenting or behaving was actually when there were other people around, was actually when like we were in public, and I caught onto that sort of in the early days, like, I wonder why it's bothering. So I'm wondering why I'm so uncomfortable because we're in the middle of the grocery store. Certainly it's not fun when a child is screaming no matter where you are, but at home, right? I'm not going to try to hush her right away. I just am not. Like, I understand the beautiful release of the tantrum.
Yeah.
I get that. I have tantrums, in
Yep.
my own way. So yeah, your true self is enough. Try, how are we able to embrace others exactly as they are? And then being able to like have that be a mirror back to us so that we have the same opportunity to show up exactly as we are. I mean, it has been the most tremendous journey and experience just for that awakening for me.
This
Yeah.
is something that, first of all, how wonderful and interesting that you had that realization so early. Because I do think this is something that many humans upon the earth struggle with when something is unpleasant, and it doesn't have to be even a child. When a situation is triggering in some way, the common response is to either try to remove yourself from the situation or change the situation. And what you managed to do, and this is in no way intended to make people who don't do this or haven't done this feel any kind of way, but isn't it so amazing? You were like, this is about me.
Mm.
This is about me responding to her doing her. And that is to have that realization so early saved you a lot of time and money in coaching and therapy.
Oh, no, no, no. I still needed to spend all the money. Yeah. Oh, listen. Sometimes surviving is a feat.
Yeah,
Okay. Surviving the next 5 minutes. Oh, absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But when we take ourselves out of this, out of the like, this has to do with me,
Hmm.
and realize, no, 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 this has to do with her nervous system, her brain, the needs of the situation. There's a point at which, and this is something we teach in our Raising Orchid Kids class too, which is like, there's a point at which you're like, oh, there's actually nothing for me to do here.
Mm-hmm.
I get to keep her safe. I get to keep me safe.
Oh, yes.
One of the things in your truth corner is take a long, deep breath.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that is is actual science, to take a
Hmm.
long, deep breath.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
right. And so once we disconnect from that, then that's where the magic happens. Then you let somebody be their true self, and guess what? They do better.
Yeah. Yes. Well, we all do, right? Because
Yes.
then there's not this resistance, right? And there's not this sort of like trying, efforting, so much effort, right? And again, I love how you say that. Like, I'm going to help keep you safe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make sure that I'm safe,
Mm-hmm.
period.
Yeah.
Done. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. But it is triggering to be in the grocery store and your child is not behaving in the way that the other children perhaps are behaving. And so walk us through, so you kind of realize this is happening. Okay, what what was her journey like? What was your journey like as you sort of navigated once you became aware, oh, this is not going the way it otherwise might?
Yes. Well, listen, I realized that like the second she was born, honestly, like she just commanded so much attention. It was next level. And I'm not an expert in, child development, although I have multiple siblings. I have a big family. I was a babysitter growing up. I've been around children and kids my entire life. I've, 11 nieces and nephews. But at the time that Arizona was born, I only had one sister who had children at the time. And so I just felt like, why is this so hard for me? Like I'm so good with kids, I was like a little mommy to my younger siblings. I really enjoyed it. It was easy for me. My youngest sister was very, very colicky and very fussy. I was 13 years old when she was born. So I felt like, I held her for hours, shushing her. My mom was a piano teacher at the time. And so she was teaching students downstairs. And my job was to keep Shenandoah, calm and quiet and well behaved, right?
Yeah.
So I just thought that I was so prepared. I was like, I got this motherhood thing, no worries.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't the case. So I feel like what eventually happened is that my sister Sarah, who did have children, who was already a mother at that point, and is also an educator,
Mm.
called me one day and was kind of like, there's something different about Arizona. And I was like, I know she's so stubborn and she just doesn't want to do right. She doesn't respond and do
Mhm.
blah,
Mhm.
and she was like, Susanna, yeah, it's not stubbornness. It's something else. And I don't know what it is, but there's something going on that's different.
I
And
want
that's,
to just stop there for a second because I
yeah,
want you to talk directly to any parents who are listening who think, oh, my child is so stubborn. Just say that sentence again. It's not stubbornness.
it is 1000% not stubbornness. There is no intention around the child wanting to be stubborn and not wanting to be complicit or whatever you want to call it, right? It is absolutely just the child being exactly who they are in that moment and meeting their own, unmet needs in that moment, right? So and by the way, her being stubborn, I felt like was my fault. It was my fault, right? So
Right, because
just,
everything is the parent's fault in our societal narrative, or maybe just in our own minds. Who knows?
well, just like if my child was well behaved and polite and I'll take the credit, right? So it always, comes back to us like so often. If we think about it, yeah, my child, yeah, she got an A. That's my A in the grade in the class. Well, actually kind of it is. But anyway, you know what I mean.
Because you took that class with her, but that's a different
Oh,
story.
oh yeah, no, I'm currently in 11th grade.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
correct.
yeah.
Yes.
Yes, it's so interesting what you said because I think so often as a coach, I forget that positive. When we do positive negative kind of associations, and we say actually those are the same, just on opposite sides of the spectrum, right? So in the same way that your child's perceived negative behavior is not your fault or your responsibility may be a different word, but not a reflection of you, your child's positive achievements are also not your fault or you're a reflection of you.
Yes, that's right.
And that is interesting.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's really hard for us to process,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's so true.
Yeah. The other thing that Arizona says in here in the forward is learn to understand your child rather than make them do what you think is normal. Do you
Hmm.
want to speak to that a little bit? How that looked for you when she was 5, 10,
Mhm.
18? How has that evolved, or like what have you noticed?
Yeah, so one of the most amazing practices that I learned from a developmental pediatrician early on, there were a lot of things that I sort of gleaned from professionals and therapists early on that I learned to do the opposite of that didn't work. Like, here are some Skittles, stare at them so we can make eye contact. And I was like, I don't understand what you're doing. My child is not a parrot or a dog. Anyhow, but one of the practices that I still adhere to today, like sort of literally and metaphorically, and that is the developmental pediatrician, Dr. Batra, Dr. Anshu Batra here in West LA. Love her so much. She saw Arizona at the age of 2.5, 2 years, 6 months, 2 years, 7 months. And she would literally get down on the floor with Arizona and just sort of look, because Arizona did not have eye contact. She's focusing on things on the floor. She's fidgeting with objects. She's holding toys. She's not connecting
Mhm.
to anyone in the room. And so Dr. Batra got down on the floor and would literally, contort her body, right, to get her eyeballs to connect with Arizona. And sometimes she was like nearly upside down. And I was like, wow, wow. And ultimately Arizona would connect, even if it was just for like a fleeting millisecond, like, right? And so chills. Yes,
Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
No, Gabrielle. So I was like, oh, ding, ding, ding. It is my work to get into her world. Okay. It is, it is my work to do that. That is why I'm here. Okay.
Yeah.
That is why she came through me and chose me as her mother. So now at the age of 5, she was obsessed with horses. Okay. So we would do a lot of, play scenarios and social situations and, visioning with horses. Okay. Then it's, age of 10, American Girl dolls, right? And so we used to do all these scenarios. We still do sometimes with American Girl dolls. Here's one doll. Here's, oh, mommy, but she has a big feeling and her friend is not looking at her. She's looking. So we do that. Now, at the age of 18, she is into mermaids currently
Mhm.
and K-pop.
Oh. Mhm.
Okay. So it's about like sort of, understanding, what her interests are and
Mhm.
letting her just express herself through those interests, even if and mostly, 90% of the time, they are not my interests. Okay. So I tried with the K-pop. I will tell you that. I really did. And some of the songs are very catchy,
Mhm.
but it is not calming or regulating to me as it is for her, you know?
I should hook her up with my friend Lisa. Shout out to my friend Lisa who loves K-pop so much.
Okay, they can rock out together.
Yeah, they
Seriously.
might need to. Um, this is so as you were talking, what you said was that it was my work to understand what she was interested in, even if I wasn't. And I just want to like flip that for a second, just for sake of illustrating the point, which is why would we ever assume that number one, a child whose brain is still in formation and developing and who doesn't have executive function or like theory of mind or isn't thinking about anybody other than themselves, as is appropriate until a certain point, why would we expect that person to plug into interests that we think are appropriate, like normal, appropriate,
Mhm. Mhm.
interesting?
Right.
Like, who decides? Where is the arbiter
Mhm.
of like what people, capital S, should be interested in?
Mhm.
It's so weird to me.
Yeah, it's so strange.
But we
Yeah.
have these defaults, right?
Yes.
But once you start to really look at them, and here's where an autistic child coming into your life will force you to look at this stuff,
Mhm. Oh, yes.
right? I mean, and
Yes.
that's where the rubber meets the road. I say to parents, like, all parents are going to experience the moment where your child does something that you think is weird or disapprove of. It might just be that they marry, the wrong person. But when an autistic child comes into your life, they are proving to you early and often that you are not in control and you better get your stuff together.
Yeah, right. Either that, or you will be, you will be completely numb to this life, right? If we don't, embrace, I mean, that's the other road.
Yeah.
And it's again, like, what an opportunity. I can't believe it. I can't believe I'm the chosen one. Oh,
It's interesting, right? Because both are true. It's like, it's really, really hard and isolating and different and uncharted at some points. And that's true. And also, aren't you so lucky to be able to be this person's mother and sort of guide her along and get to do whatever that's doing in you, which then allows you to write this book, which allows you to help a lot of people, which allows her to be her truest self and you to be your truest self, which then rubs off on everybody.
yeah. It's quite brilliant. It's really this intrinsic, it's like this organic ripple, you
Yeah.
know, ripple effect.
Saying all of that sounds very beautiful, and I have chills, and it's very melty and gooey and lovely. Let's come back to daily life
Yeah.
with someone who's autistic. Tell like tell us what that looks like, and pick a stage. I don't care. It could be now, it could be late, earlier. Um, how have you navigated the difference? Because you are not autistic, I'm assuming.
Maybe
Didn't
not.
actually
Yeah.
ask you.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and your daughter is neurodivergent, right? So you have very different neurotypes happening in your
Yes,
family.
correct.
How do you navigate everybody's different brains?
Yeah. So, well, in my household, there is just the two of us. So me in Arizona. So there's that. Oh, yeah, and Fifi and Luna, who are cats, who are Siberian forest cats that are hypoallergenic that Arizona found because we're both so allergic to cats. But she found these cats during COVID. So it is us. And, managing someone else just in general is a responsibility.
Mhm.
Just taking into consideration, if we choose to, other people's feelings and opinions and desires and, needs and unmet needs. I would say, again, I've realized now with Arizona being, me having done this for 18 years now, mothering, that is, that there are actually a lot more similarities than differences at
Mhm.
this point.
Mhm.
She has this beautiful way of expressing exactly how she's feeling, exactly how she's thinking in her body, in her brain, in her heart. There has never been any sort of cap on that ability to express. Um, Not in this household at all, ever. It's like everything is okay. Tell me more. You know, good to know. Tell me more. I often say, good to know. Like when she told me I had half a brain cell the other day. So it's like, good to know. Tell me why. Um, and etc. So it's just, I don't know. It's this dance. It's this ebb and flow. It's this parallel journey. I, realize that her needs to self-regulate or to find calm or to get into a ventral state is much different than mine. And we talk about it. We are able to talk about it. And the other day, speaking of taking a long breath, she's like, Mommy, do you need to take a long breath? Because I was so agitated, driving her to school and so annoyed because she wanted to regulate with K-pop.
Mm.
And I said, yes, I do. You know what I mean? And so she will just have this way of saying, yeah, Mommy, I understand. I understand. You're
I
really
think
frustrated. Yeah.
there are so many people. So, and I don't know that people listening to this will fall into this camp, but there are so many people. Back talk is like a big subject, right? In the parenting circles, like parents feel like their kids talk back to them. This
Hmm.
is a classic case of
Hmm.
what might be perceived as back talk, which is, Mommy,
Hmm.
do you need to take a deep breath?
Hmm.
And nothing could be further from the truth, because
Hmm.
the what's actually happening there is she has strategies that she knows how to use, and she's suggesting that you use one. And
Mhm.
what I find so interesting about that is like is this notion that like when a child wants to tell an adult what to do, it's inappropriate. But we want to tell children what to do all the time, and that is appropriate. And by the way, our idea of what they need to do is completely wrong in their mind, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
And and so I think she does have. I'm just going to toggle back. Oh, she doesn't. So there's a term going around called childism,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
is basically the what I just said, which is like
Mm-hmm.
adults claim power over children because for the simple fact that they are children.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we recognize children are in possession of not quite fully cooked brains, and that doesn't make them subhuman.
That's right.
And so it's a really interesting
That's right.
thing. And I one of the things that I think people are going to really love reading about in your book is kind of how you navigate with, by the way, so much self-awareness
Mm.
about what's happening. It's like, oh, the her saying I have half a brain cell is not about me. So let me just like pause and not take it personally and find out what's going on here,
Yes,
which is a hard work
it's hard work.
in the moment because I'm sure well, you tell me, how does it feel when your daughter says you have half a brain cell?
Well, again, it's right. It's both and because
Yeah.
it is like it's kind of like a "Ugh, really you're so ungrateful, and at the same time, okay, so something else is happening, something else is going on. Usually, it's 12 things that have led up to that, outburst. Her mouth as a volcano, um, and but what I love to do with her now is we can have this really sort of humorous banter back and forth in the moments too. So I'm like, oh man, gosh, then I'm not going to be able to make you dinner. Like I can't drive because I'm imagining that someone with half a brain cell only would not be able to function. In fact, I can't even talk anymore, blah, 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 right? And so that's kind of what I do to get to a point to just sort of like break the ice a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, okay, tell me what's going on. And sometimes she won't be able to access the reason why. She'll take a break. She'll go upstairs. Mommy, I'm just going to take 30 minutes. Can we revisit? Can we come back? Can we have a do-over, mommy? I said, sure, sounds good. She starts her timer. She comes down in 30 minutes. We're both refreshed because who doesn't need 30 minutes of free time? I mean, even just headspace and physical space. Hello,
Hello.
all day, every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what we do now. It's delightful, honestly. Like every day is not a walk in the park by any means.
Yeah.
But these moments help. And I just feel like if I can just combat sort of the discomfort with some sort of like, again, like humor, it just always helps me. I try not to take myself too seriously because I have to be so, responsible in real
But
life.
the extreme lack of resistance is what's so beautiful there, right? It's like what you're not doing is saying, no, I'm not, or why are you being so ungrateful? Or like, why are you behaving this way? Like, you're what you are doing, and I'm using you as an example, not because you're perfect, but because we're here and we're talking about this, right?
Right.
What we can do, what everybody can do, is take a beat, feel the dart that lands at your wherever it lands,
Good word. Yes.
right? It's a little
Yes.
dart. It's a little, and you
Yes.
can let that dart spread poison all over you,
Hmm.
or you can take it out and be like, huh, that hurt. Interesting. I wonder what's going on that you wanted to throw that dart at me, right? It's very different. The energy, the headspace, and therefore the brain access that you have when one is able to kind of separate,
Yes. Yes.
um, which is something that you have been practicing over and over.
Oh,
And
yeah.
when you practice
Well,
something, you get good at it.
I mean, right. The opportunities just present themselves often. I'll just say that. And by the way, also too, there are times like this morning
Mm.
when we're rushing to get ready for school, and Arizona is like, mommy, look at Luna. Look at what she's doing. Look at Fifi. Look at what. And I said, okay, I am trying to get myself ready now. So I need you to stop talking. Okay, mama, right? So there's also those moments too. Like I just can't do it all the
Yeah.
time. Like we got to get to school. Yeah.
We talk about in our Raising Orchid Kids class, we talk about zones of regulation as one of the just kind of ways of measuring, taking your emotional temperature, right? And there's whatever zone there is. Anyway, the red zone is the one where you were dangerously close to this morning. It was like, I just need everything to stop. So we have a family who teenage son and mom in the kitchen, and teenage son was, I don't know, whatever they were doing, and mom had had a terrible day, and mom turns to the teenage son, is like, dude, you just got to know that I'm in the red zone right now, so whatever it is that you need, I am very sorry, but I will not be delivering at this moment. I need a minute. And this child, neurodivergent child, said, cool, mom, I'll come back later. Right? So, like, when we teach these skills, we can use these skills, and we should. These skills are not just to like be foisted upon children, neurodivergent or not. What I hear you saying a lot of is like you're in dialogue with your equal partner, your daughter, who, yes, has some maturing to do, but who is an equal partner in that exchange.
That's correct.
And that's a
Yes.
beautiful thing,
So good.
because
So good.
she goes to other interactions with that skill. And particularly girls, like the last thing we want to do with girls is have them be quiet and compliant. Like, absolutely not.
Seriously. No, seriously. And especially now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we could talk all day, and that would be
Yes.
really fun, but we're going to put a
Yes.
pin in this here. If people want to get a hold of you, get a hold of your book, if they want to talk to you, work with you, how do they do that?
Yeah. So my book is on Amazon. So you can find that there. Your True Self is Enough. And my website though has everything on it. So there's a contact form. There are some, downloadables. There is a link to my online course for, living a thriving life, or at least attempting to, as a, family with disability family. And then there's also a link to my book too. And so my website is my first, middle, and last name.com. And that is SusannaPeaceLovell.com. And I will welcome you with open arms if you have any questions or just want to connect or chat. I have an Instagram. It's at Mama Peace, MAMAPEACE. And I am so honored to be of service to my beloved community.
Amazing. We will link to all of that in the show notes. And Susanna, what a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabrielle.